A world waking from snow. There are certain dates in gaming history that feel less like product launches and more like cultural moments. For millions of players around the world, November 11th, 2011 was one of those moments. A date anticipated for years. A date circled on calendars, whispered through forums, shared between friends. A date when an entire world was waiting for a northern province to open its gates. That world was Skyrim. Its arrival marked not just the release of a major title, but the culmination of an artistic philosophy Bethesda had been shaping for decades. A philosophy built on freedom, discovery, and the idea that a player should feel like they're stepping into a living realm, not a scripted theme park. But to understand why Skyrim became the phenomenon it is, we have to go back to the years before its frozen mountains were ever imagined. After Oblivion, a studio at a crossroads, when the Elder Scrolls IV. Oblivion launched in 2006, it pushed open-world design into a new frontier. The forests were lush, the citadels towering, the Daedric gates terrifying and strange. But Oblivion was also a lesson, a vast experiment that revealed both the strengths and weaknesses of Bethesda's approach. Players adored the freedom, the quests, the endless ability to become whoever they wished. Yet they also noticed the seams, NPCs wandering aimlessly, AI breaking in unpredictable ways, a world that sometimes felt too bright, too uniform, too clean. Behind the scenes, the developers knew they wanted to go further, not bigger for the sake of size, but deeper. They wanted a world with texture, a world with age, a world that felt like history had shaped every stone and every snowdrift. The question became, where in Tamriel could carry that weight? The obvious answer wasn't obvious at all. Choosing Skyrim, a land of harsh beauty, several provinces were considered early on. Hammerfell with its dense cities and scorching deserts, Valenwood with its living forests and Bosmeride traditions, Elsewhere with its wide sands and moonlit mysticism. Even Black Marsh's swamps and Argonian culture were explored in internal discussions. But Skyrim kept rising to the top, not because it was easy, but because it was layered, rugged, cold, untamed. A place where the land itself tells a story before anyone opens their mouth. The team saw potential in the contrast between its cultures and climates. Soft green marshes in the south, volcanic plains near Eastmarch, frozen fjords in Winterhold, and alpine forests surrounding Whiterun. Each region offered a different mood, a different emotion, a different style of storytelling. And then there was the Nord culture. Ancient, mythological, shaped by survival, steeped in song and legend. It felt grounded and believable, yet open enough for fantasy to breathe. If Oblivion was a bright medieval tapestry, Skyrim would be carved from granite and ice. Building a world that lives without you. To bring Skyrim to life, Bethesda expanded an idea they had begun exploring during Oblivion. A world that wasn't simply a backdrop, but a living ecosystem. From this philosophy emerged two of the most important systems in the game, Radiant AI and Radiant Story. Radiant AI was a profound leap. Instead of treating NPCs as static quest dispensers, the team wanted them to mimic real people with routines, goals, and personalities. Farmers would wake before sunrise to tend crops. Children would run between homes, inventing imaginary adventures. Merchants would actually close their shops and go eat dinner. Guards would get tired and rotate shifts. This made the world feel like it continued even when the player wasn't watching. Radiant Story took the concept further. Instead of creating strictly scripted pathways, the team designed a woven network of possibilities. Quests that could shift depending on who the player interacted with, what locations they discovered, and which factions they angered. A kidnapped NPC could be placed in a random bandit camp. A bounty hunter could spawn because of the player's mistake days earlier. Treasure maps could point to locations the player hadn't explored yet, subtly guiding them toward new experiences. These systems didn't always behave perfectly. Sometimes they created uncanny, unpredictable situations. But even these quirks gave the world an energy that made it feel alive. A geography shaped by story, not scale one. Of the first things the development team decided was that Skyrim wouldn't be a uniform world. It wouldn't look like a single artist painted it from one direction. Instead, it would be shaped by geological history and cultural boundaries, just like real landscapes. Rather than building a single massive terrain and filling it with towns, the team broke Skyrim into micro-regions, each with its own atmosphere and purpose. The Rift would be lush and amber-colored, almost autumnal. The Reach would be jagged, brutal, and shaped by Dwemer upheaval. Eastmarch would be sulfurous and unstable, scarred by ancient volcanic forces. Snowy tundras in Whiterun Hold would be wide, open, and windswept like Nordic plains. Each region was treated like a character, with history, scars, and secrets. The goal wasn't realism, it was emotional truth. They wanted players to feel something different depending on where they stood. The birth of the dragon concept dragons were not in Skyrim's earliest drafts. For months, the team explored various anchoring mythologies. Giants, spirits, ancient kings, forgotten wars. All compelling, but none with the explosive energy the game needed. Dragons emerged not as simple monsters, but as remnants of a forgotten age. A force older than nations and far older than the Empire. To make them meaningful, the team created an entirely new language, Dovazul. Not just shouted syllables, but a fully constructed linguistic system with verbs, roots, grammar, and poetic structure. The language became the backbone of the dragon's shouts. Words that felt primitive, powerful, elemental. This concept elevated dragons from enemies to ancient beings bound by lore and culture. They weren't obstacles, they were living history. Creatures whose voices shaped the world long before humans walked on it. The music that defined an era. Jeremy Soule approached Skyrim's music as if he were writing the memory of a civilization rather than a soundtrack. He built choirs around Nordic phonetics and layered them until they sounded like something rising from deep within the earth. He wanted the player to feel isolation, awe, and reverence, not through complexity but through space. The music didn't guide you, it surrounded you. It became part of the landscape, cold, distant, and deeply human. A launch that was beautifully chaotic. Skyrim sold faster than any Elder Scrolls game before it, but that speed came at a cost. Early versions were famously unpredictable. Dragons flew backward, NPCs floated or spun into the air, mammoths defied gravity, giants sent players launching into low orbit. Buggy, yes, broken sometimes. But players loved it anyway because the world was so massive, so earnest in its ambition, that the chaos felt like part of the charm. Skyrim wasn't polished, it was alive. Cut features and what they reveal about development. Bethesda explored dozens of features that never made it into the final build. Spear combat, fully prototyped. Seasonal weather with actual temperature systems. Spellcrafting, removed due to technical limitations. Dragon riding, initially planned for the base game. More complex city economies. Mounted combat, only partially implemented. Climbing systems, later used in Starfield prototypes. Civil War battles that move dynamically based on player actions. Every cut feature reflects a team striving for something bigger than the technology of the time could reliably hold. Section 1, closing. The door opens. Skyrim didn't become iconic because it was perfect. It became iconic because it dared to be vast. It dared to give players a world where they could get lost. Emotionally, geographically, philosophically. Skyrim is the result of vision meeting limitation, myth meeting technology, and ambition meeting reality. It is, above all, a world that invites you in and says, make your own story. And to understand that story fully, we need to go deeper. Into the culture, the beliefs, the wars, and the legends that shaped the Nords long before the Dragonborn ever drew their first breath. The story of Skyrim is inseparable from the story of its people. The Nords are not simply citizens of the province. They are the heartbeat of its identity, the architects of its traditions, and the inheritors of legends older than most empires on Tamriel. To understand Skyrim, you must understand them. A culture shaped by mountains, mythology, hardship, and memory. Long before the Empire claimed sovereignty over the North, long before the Septums ruled, long before the Dragonborn title echoed. Through the world, there was Atmora, a land of ice and wind across the sea. That is where everything begins. The journey from Atmora, a people shaped by the cold. In the earliest ages of Tamriel, when most of the continent was still young, the ancestors of the Nords lived in Atmora. It was not a gentle land. Myth describes it as a place where winter never ended, where forests collapsed under their own frost, and where life could only exist through strength and community. Legends describe the ancient Atmorans as fierce sailors, hunters, and warriors. Not savages, as some later texts unkindly imply, but survivors. People who learned that the world does not forgive weakness, yet honors courage. As Atmora's climate grew colder, entire tribes set sail for the southern continent of Tamriel. They landed on Skyrim's northern coast in waves, not as conquerors, but as desperate migrants seeking a land that still held warmth. They did not arrive to an empty province. They stepped into a land already occupied by a deeply magical race, the Snow Elves. And from that meeting, history would take a tragic turn. War with the Snow Elves. The birth of conflict to the Nords. Skyrim was a new beginning. To the Snow Elves, it was home. At first, the two peoples coexisted uneasily. There are tales of shared feasts, trade, and even intermarriage. But the peace was fragile. Differences in culture, faith, and worldviews created tension. And eventually, small disputes escalated into violent conflicts. The most infamous spark was the Night of Tears, when the ancient Nord city of Sarthal was destroyed. Whether this act was motivated by fear, jealousy, or something far deeper remains a topic of debate among scholars, but its effect was absolute. The Nords united under the legendary warrior Ysgramor, who, together with his 500 companions, pushed back the Snow Elves in a long campaign that reshaped the very identity of the land. The elves were driven underground. Some took refuge in Dwemer cities, only to suffer a fate even worse than defeat. There, blinded by toxic fungi and exploited by dwarven masters, the Snow Elves evolved, or devolved, into the tragic beings known as the Falmer. Thus, one of Skyrim's oldest wounds was carved. A story of two peoples, both victims of history, locked into roles neither fully chose. Religion of the Nords, a pantheon carved from nature. To understand the Nords is to understand their gods. Nordic religion is not abstract philosophy. It is a reflection of the land itself. Their pantheon includes Shor, the king of the gods, guardian of the afterlife, and a figure of deep reverence. Imperials call him Lorcan, but to Nords he is a hero, not a trickster. Kind goddess of storms, winds, and the breath of life. Many Nords believe she sent the dragons into the world, and later sent the Dragonborn to stop them. Suk, god of strength and trial. A reminder that hardship is not punishment, but purpose. Talos, perhaps the most politically charged figure in Nordic worship. To Nords, Talos is a god. To the Aldmeri Dominion, he is a dangerous myth. This disagreement would eventually fracture Skyrim's identity during the Civil War. Unlike other cultures, the Nords do not place their gods in distant temples guarded by robed priests. Their deities live in the wind, the mountains, the storms, the mead halls, woven into daily life. Faith is not ritual. Faith is survival. Nord architecture, stone, timber, and memory. Nord architecture reflects the same philosophy. Homes are built low to the ground, designed to endure the weight of snow and the bite of northern winds. The iconic longhouse is more than a structure. It is the heart of Nordic society, a communal space where stories are told, disputes are settled, and warmth is shared. Grand halls like Dragon's Reach or Palace of the Kings combine practicality with symbolism. Their heavy beams and steep roofs evoke ancient ships, echoing the Nord journey from Atmora. Even small villages tell stories through their construction. Whiterun's homesteads curve gently like old shields. Windhelm's stone walls feel ancient, cracked by history. Riften's wooden homes cling to the docks with stubborn endurance. Solitude rises like a crown, carved from Rocknord structures aren't decorative. They are defensive. They protect life against a world that tests every living thing. Food, drink, and celebration. Surviving through community hardship shaped the Nord diet. Simple, nourishing foods became staples. Stews made from root vegetables, salted meats cured for winter, breads baked from local grains, smoked fish from northern lakes. But nothing is more iconic than mead, not merely a drink, but a cultural symbol. For the Nords, sharing mead is sharing life, a celebration of surviving another day, a ritual that brings strangers, families, and warriors together. Their bards preserve history through song, turning battles, tragedies, and legends into stories retold across generations. Music is not just entertainment, it's memory, it's legacy. Magic and the Nord relationship with the arcane magic in Nordic culture is complicated. It is respected, feared, admired, and distrusted all at once. The Nords have ancient shamans, priests, and seers, but centuries of conflict, especially the misuse of magic during the Merethic era, created a deep cultural wariness. This is why institutions like the College of Winterhold stand apart. both literally and symbolically. Nords respect its purpose but keep it at arm's length, watching carefully, cautious of what power might awaken. Magic, to them, is a tool of the gods, something that should be touched with reverence, not obsession. Politics of the Nine Holds, a patchwork of power. Skyrim is not a unified nation. It is a collection of 9 holds, each ruled by a jarl, each fiercely proud of its independence. The holds differ wildly in a culture, wealth, and temperament. Solitude commands seafaring power. Windhelm clings to ancient traditions. Whiterun sits at the center, a crossroads of trade and diplomacy. Markarth is a stronghold built upon Dwemer stone and Reachman blood. The Jarls rule not only through authority but reputation. They are expected to be warriors, caretakers, judges, stewards, symbols of strength. Unity among the holds is fragile, and when the civil war erupts, that unity fractures completely. Landscape and worldview, how the land shapes the spirit. More than any culture in Tamriel, the Nords are shaped by their environment. The cold teaches humility. The mountains teach resilience. The storms teach patience. Few other peoples treat nature as a teacher rather than an obstacle. For Nords, every blizzard, every hunt, every climb is a lesson, a reminder that life is harsh, but surviving it is a sacred act. This worldview explains much about their values: bravery, honor, loyalty, hospitality, remembrance. Everything ties back to the land, a people forged from history. The Nords are not perfect. Their history is full of triumph and violence, compassion and prejudice, victory and tragedy. But they understand something essential. A culture survives not through domination, but through memory. Skyrim is their memory carved into mountains, their legacy frozen beneath snow, their resilience echoed through the long halls and frost-covered stones. To understand Skyrim's conflicts, myths, and monsters, you must first understand the people who call it home. And now that we have, it is time to step into their oldest myth, the story of dragons, the return of Alduin, and the meaning of the Dragonborn. For most cultures in Tamriel, dragons are legends, creatures dismissed as ancient metaphors, poetic exaggerations, or myths carried through old songs. But in Skyrim, dragons are not distant stories. They are ancestors, they are tyrants, they are teachers, they are the original language of creation. To understand Skyrim, you must understand the one truth that echoes through every ruin, every burial mound, every word carved into ancient stone. The world was not only shaped by dragons, it was once ruled for them. And every dragonborn who rises is not simply a hero. They are a reminder of that ancient order, the age of dragons, empire before empire. Long before humans or Mer rose to power, dragons dominated the world. To them, mortality was a brief flicker. They saw centuries as seasons. Their culture was recorded not on paper, but in the mountains themselves. What we know of that era comes not from scholars, but from the dragon's own language. A language carved into monolithic word walls, left behind like monuments to forgotten rule. Dragons are not mindless beasts. They possessed cities, hierarchies, philosophy, a system of governance, and a culture built around their mastery of the voice. At the center of this ancient dragon empire stood Alduin, the World Eater. Not only the strongest dragon, but the one who considered himself the rightful ruler of the world. A being older than most of creation myths, other dragons obeyed him not simply out of fear, but because their worldview demanded it. Dragons saw power as natural law, strength defined truth. This worldview carried into their language. Every word was an assertion of force. Every utterance of a Thu'um was an expression of will, the dragon cult, a civilization of worship and fear. Dragons did not exist alone. Mortals lived beneath them, enslaved or coerced into a system known as the dragon cult. The cult was a theocratic monarchy. Priests interpreted the dragon's will. Burial rites were created to preserve deceased dragons. Temples were constructed in their honor. Offerings were demanded. Obedience was absolute. Even in ruins, their influence remains. Skyhaven Temple, Forelhost, Labyrinthian, and countless Draugr-guarded chambers reveal an era when humans bowed to scaled gods. But revolts eventually came, led by ancient Nords who longed for freedom. Those rebels did not win easily. They succeeded only when gifted a powerful secret, the knowledge of the voice. the Thuum. When words become weapons, the voice, or Thuum, is not shouting. It is the language of dragons spoken with mortal lungs. In this tongue, words are not symbols, they are laws. They do not describe reality, they reshape it. Each word carries force, intention, and cosmic authority. For example, Fwes means force, Ro means balance, Dah means push. Combined, they become an irresistible shockwave. Most mortals cannot produce even one true word without training, yet dragons speak in entire sentences effortlessly. This linguistic system was so complex and sacred that Bethesda hired language architects to design an alphabet, grammar structure, and etymology for every syllable spoken by dragons. The Thuum became a symbol of identity, pride, and survival, and eventually, it became the weapon that toppled a world. Alduin's fall, betrayal, and time itself. The war between Nords and dragons turned only when 3 legendary heroes did the unthinkable. Unable to defeat Alduin, they used the Elder Scroll not as knowledge, but as a weapon, wrenching Alduin out of their era and hurling him into the future. The dragons were not destroyed. Many fell, some hid. Others were entombed by the dragon cult in burial mounds. But Alduin, the crown of their race, vanished from history. The world continued. Generations passed. Empires rose and crumbled. Dragons faded into myth. And then the prophecy began. The Dragonborn, children of the voice. The concept of the Dragonborn appears in nearly every culture across Tamriel. But the Nords believe the Dragonborn holds a sacred origin, a mortal imbued with the soul of a dragon. A Dragonborn can absorb dragon souls, learn words instantly, bend reality with the same authority as the ancient worms, challenge dragons as equals, break the natural cycle of death and rebirth. This is why Alduin fears the Dragonborn, not because they are mortal, but because they can kill in ways dragons were never meant to face. The Dragonborn is prophecy, weapon, and anomaly. Parthernax, the dragon who chose wisdom. Among Skyrim's dragons, Parthernax stands apart. Once Alduin's lieutenant, he committed an unforgivable betrayal. He taught humans the power of the voice, knowing it would be used against his own kind. His reason? He believed dragons were trapped in an endless cycle of domination. He wanted them to learn mercy. He wanted them to evolve. Parthernax embodies one of Skyrim's greatest philosophical questions. Can a creature built for conquest choose peace? Is redemption possible for beings shaped by instinct? His presence at the throat of the world symbolizes a turning point in dragonkind, a slow, painful divergence away from Alduin's doctrine. Dragons today, wild creatures, not monsters. Dragons in Skyrim are not evil. Some are arrogant, some cruel, some curious, and some wise. They are individuals with motivations as varied as mortals. Dragons who view the Dragonborn as a rival. Dragons who consider them a reincarnated king. Dragons who respect strength above all. Dragons who lament the old world. Dragons who desire independence from Alduin's rule. When dragons attack villages or burn caravans, it isn't malice. It is instinct, dominance, and hunger. They are predators in a land that has forgotten its place in the food chain. This nuance is what makes Skyrim's dragons feel alive. They are unpredictable, not scripted, and capable of appearing anywhere at any time. Dragon names, meaning within meaning. Every dragon's name reflects its personality and power. For example, Alduin, Devour Master; Parthernax, Ambition Overlord; Odaviing, Snow Hunter Wing; Mermulnir, Allegiance Ballad Hunt. Their names are not labels, they are condensed philosophies, a statement of nature, identity, and destiny. This depth is why Bethesda built the dragon language with real linguistic rules. It's not aesthetic flavor, it's a world-building backbone. The Return, why dragons came back. The central mystery of Skyrim's narrative is not why dragons attack, but why they returned at all. According to prophecy, Alduin returns not to end the world, but to remake it. Dragons do not fear apocalypse. Apocalypse is renewal. Alduin's resurrection of his kin is not random. It is deliberate, a plan to rebuild the ancient dragon empire from ashes. The burial mounds scattered across Skyrim are not tombs. They are storage vaults. seeds waiting to sprout when Alduin speaks the words of revival. The Dragonborn's arrival is not coincidence. It is the countermeasure the universe has prepared. This dual return, Alduin and the Dragonborn, is the oldest story in Tamriel. When the World Eater rises, a child of the voice rises to meet him. Myth walks again. Dragons are not monsters. They are the memory of a world that once belonged to fire and sky. Every roar is an echo of ancient rule. Every word wall is a monument to forgotten truth. Every dragon slain is a conversation ended too soon. The Dragonborn does not simply kill dragons, they inherit their legacy. And to understand that legacy fully, we must descend into the institutions, factions, and shadowed guilds that shape Skyrim's politics. From assassins hiding in candlelit sanctuaries, to thieves operating beneath cities, to mages standing at the brink of catastrophe. These are the forces that shape Skyrim's living history. Every province in Tamriel has its politics, its heroes, and its villains. But Skyrim is shaped by something deeper, a tapestry of ancient orders, secret societies, and fractured brotherhoods that lie beneath the surface of everyday life. To walk through Skyrim is to pass through centuries of rivalries, oaths, betrayals, and traditions carved into the very stones of its cities. Some of these groups operate in the open, proudly wearing their colors. Others hide in shadows, speaking in whispers and forgotten tongues. Together, they form the living, breathing backbone of Skyrim's culture. And they each reflect a different facet of what it means to survive in the North. The Companions, warriors forged through brotherhood. The first major faction encountered by many travelers is the Companions, a guild of warriors based in Whiterun. But unlike the Fighters Guild found in other provinces, the Companions are older, rougher, and more deeply rooted in tradition. Their story begins with Isgrimor and the 500 companions who battled the Snow Elves during the Night of Tears and carved the early foundations of Nord civilization. The modern companions claim to follow that legacy, not through bloodline but through action. They do not concern themselves with politics or kings. They honor strength, loyalty, and mutual respect. Anyone can join them if they prove themselves worthy, whether noble or peasant, Nord or outsider. But beneath their noble surface lies a secret older than Whiterun itself. The inner circle is bound by a curse and a blessing woven from ancient magic. Members of the circle are werewolves, not by misfortune, but by choice. They see lycanthropy as a path to power, freedom, and spiritual identity, a gift from their patron, Hircine, Daedric Prince of the Hunt. Yet not all companions agree with this legacy, and their internal tensions reveal a quiet struggle about honor, identity, and the meaning of legacy. The companions, despite their strength, are fragile. They are a family trying to decide what traditions deserve to survive. The College of Winterhold, a tower of knowledge in a city of ruin. On the northern coast, battered by sea and snow, stands the College of Winterhold, the last major institution of magical study in Skyrim. To outsiders, the college is mysterious, aloof, and perhaps even dangerous. To mages, it is one of the few remaining sanctuaries where knowledge is preserved without prejudice. Winterhold itself, however, tells a tragic story. Years before the Dragonborn arrives, the city was devastated by an event known as the Great Collapse. An enormous chunk of the coastline broke off and fell into the sea, destroying nearly all of Winterhold. The only structure that remained intact was the college. This miracle, or curse, depending on whom you ask, fueled suspicion among the local Nords. They saw the survival of the college as proof that magic caused the disaster, even though its true origins remain unknown. The college thus stands as a symbol of the tension between knowledge and fear. Students from across Tamriel, Breton scholars, Altmer specialists, Dunmer refugees, come to study arcane arts. But they do so under the watchful eyes of a population that sees them as outsiders. Within the college, apprentices pursue studies in restoration, destruction, illusion, conjuration, alteration, and the mysterious field of magic known simply as the Arcana. But beneath all of this lies the deeper story of the Eye of Magnus, a power so ancient that even the Psijic Order emerges from seclusion to warn against it. The college's questline is not just a lesson in magic, it is a lesson in restraint, hubris, and the consequences of knowledge pursued without wisdom. The Thieves' Guild, shadows beneath the rift. In the canals beneath Riften lies one of Skyrim's most iconic factions, the Thieves' Guild. At first glance, the guild seems like a collection of simple criminals, pickpockets, lockpickers, smugglers, fences, and gamblers. But the truth is deeper. The guild is a dying organization when the Dragonborn arrives, held together by fading loyalty and dwindling profits. Corruption has divided its leadership. Superstition haunts its tunnels. And a series of mysterious misfortunes has stripped the guild of its influence. At the center of this decline is the absence of Nocturnal's favor, the Daedric Prince of Night and Darkness, patron of thieves, fortune, and shadow. The Ebony Skeleton Key, a sacred artifact that once protected the guild, has been stolen, leaving the faction spiritually and symbolically broken. Restoring the guild means not only rebuilding its reputation, but rekindling its forgotten connection to the divine. The Thieves Guild storyline is not truly about gold, but about destiny. It touches on ideas of luck as a supernatural force, loyalty within lawlessness, the ethics of survival, and the quiet, invisible magic that shapes the lives of rogues. The guild represents the duality of the world, the shadows that cannot exist without the light above Riften's wooden docks, the Dark Brotherhood, murder, devotion, and the silence of the Night Mother. The Dark Brotherhood is the most feared and misunderstood faction in Skyrim, a secret order of assassins bound not by coin, but by religion. To outsiders, they are murderers. To their members, they are spiritual servants of Sithis, the void from which all souls originate. Their killings are seen as ritual, divinely sanctioned through contracts delivered by the spectral Night Mother. In Skyrim, the Brotherhood is collapsing. Their sanctuaries are destroyed. Their members are hunted. Their leadership is fractured. Astrid, their acting leader, struggles between tradition and survival. Her belief in the Brotherhood is strong, but her faith in the Night Mother's decrees wavers. A dangerous conflict in a religion built on absolute obedience. The return of the Listener, the one mortal who can hear the Night Mother's whispers, threatens Astrid's authority and begins a deadly spiral. The Brotherhood's story explores themes of betrayal within devotion, the fragility of power, destiny versus free will, the darkness inside loyalty. It is one of the most intimate and morally complex arcs in Skyrim, revealing a world where murder is not random, it is ritual. The Blades, a legacy almost extinct. Once, the Blades were among the most powerful organizations in Tamriel, bodyguards, spies, protectors of emperors, and hunters of dragons. But by the time Skyrim's story begins, the Blades are shattered. The rise of the Aldmeri Dominion and the enforcement of the White Gold Concordat forced the Empire to outlaw Talos worship and dismantle the Blades. Many were executed, others disappeared. The few who remain cling to a desperate mission, to guide and protect the Dragonborn. But their beliefs challenge the wisdom of the Greybeards. The Blades demand the extermination of dragons entirely. The Greybeards seek balance, understanding, and peace. The tension between these groups shapes the philosophical heart of Skyrim's main quest. The Greybeards, keepers of the voice. On the highest mountain in Tamriel, the Greybeards live in silence. They do not speak because their words wield power too great for casual use. Their mastery of the voice makes them both saints and weapons. The Greybeards believe the Thu'um is a spiritual force, not a tool of war. Their leader, Paarthurnax, embodies this philosophy through patient guidance and deep remorse for his past sins. Their role in Skyrim's narrative is subtle. They do not command the Dragonborn, they shepherd them. They offer wisdom, meditation, and the quiet understanding that great power must be tempered by moral clarity. The Stormcloaks and the Imperial Legion, ideology at war. Although the Civil War receives its own section later, the Stormcloaks and Legion must be acknowledged here as factions. The Stormcloaks fight for independence, faith, and tradition. The Empire fights for stability, survival, and political necessity. Neither side is wholly right or wholly wrong. Their conflict reflects the internal fractures of every other faction in the province. Skyrim's living web of loyalties. Skyrim's factions do not exist in isolation. They overlap, conflict, intertwine, and collapse into one another like rivers flowing into a deep, ancient basin. They represent the full spectrum of human experience: honor, ambition, betrayal, curiosity, survival, faith, purpose. And through them, players discover not just the province, but themselves. Each guild, each brotherhood, each circle of warriors or mages asks the player a question: What will you become in a world where every path has a cost? Because in Skyrim, belonging is not guaranteed. It must be earned, and every choice leaves a mark. The Daedric princes are some of the most enigmatic beings in the Elder Scrolls universe. They do not live in Tamriel. They do not obey its laws. They do not care for mortals in the way gods usually do. They exist beyond morality, beings of pure intention, unclouded by concepts like good or evil. Each prince embodies a philosophy, a fundamental concept of existence carried to its extreme. Their quests in Skyrim reveal not only their personality, but their worldview, and what they believe mortals are meant to be. To understand the Daedra is to understand the parts of humanity that rarely speak aloud. In Skyrim, 17 Daedric princes influence the mortal world, though only 16 appear directly. Their shrines are hidden in forests, mountains, caves, and ancient ruins, waiting for mortals bold enough to seek them out. Let's explore the most iconic among them, not merely as quest givers, but as cosmic reflections of the human heart. Mehrunes Dagon: Destruction, Ambition, and the Price of Power. Mehrunes Dagon is the Daedric prince of destruction, change, revolution, and ambition. His influence appears whenever an empire crumbles or a tyrant falls. He represents the raw, unfiltered chaos that tears down civilizations to clear the way for new ones. Most players know him as the antagonist of Oblivion, but in Skyrim, his presence takes a subtler form. The Dragonborn encounters Dagon through the Mehrunes Razor quest, which begins innocently as a simple errand for the historian Silas Vesuvius. But the artifact at the center of this story is no ordinary weapon. It is a legendary dagger capable of killing with a single strike. Dagon's philosophy becomes clear in this quest. He rewards decisiveness. He despises hesitation. He admires ambition, even when it manifests as betrayal. The final choice, whether to kill Silas and rebuild the Razor, is not a moral test. To Dagon, it is a measure of resolve. Mortals who choose power at any cost impress him. Mortals who refuse are dismissed as too timid to reshape the world. In Dagon's eyes, destruction is not cruelty. Destruction is opportunity. Molag Bal: Domination, submission, and the architecture of fear. Molag Bal is one of the darkest princes, the embodiment of domination, cruelty, and the subjugation of free will. His influence is suffocating, his demands absolute. In Skyrim, his presence is felt through the decaying shrine in Markarth, where a priest of Boethia is tortured within an iron cage. Molag Bal does not test skill or intelligence. He tests obedience. To him, mortals are tools, instruments meant to submit, break, and bend. His quest forces the Dragonborn to confront themes that Skyrim rarely addresses directly: cycles of abuse, the nature of power, the seduction of authority, and how easily a warrior can become an executioner. Molag Bal does not grant power for courageous deeds. He gives power to those willing to enforce suffering in his name. The Mace of Molag Bal becomes a symbol not of victory, but of moral concession, a reminder that sometimes the darkest quests reveal the darkest corners of one's own character. Namira: Decay, Taboo, and the shadowed corners of human nature. Namira represents something far more subtle than destruction: the beauty of decay, darkness, and what society calls unclean. Where other princes demand glory or strength, Namira demands honesty, an honesty about the parts of human instinct most prefer to ignore. Her quest in Skyrim, involving the cannibalistic cult beneath Markarth, is one of the most disturbing in the game. But the horror lies not in the act itself. It lies in recognizing how quickly other characters accept the invitation. The story examines what happens when social rules break, what taboos humans enforce to maintain order, how easily morality fractures when a charismatic leader provides justification. Namira does not seek worship through grandeur. She whispers to mortals who feel cast aside, forgotten, or repulsive. Her followers find comfort in the shadows because the light has rejected them. Her artifact, the Ring of Namira, becomes a metaphor for this philosophy: power born from what society hides. Azura: destiny, prophecy, and the courage to see beyond mortality. Azura is one of the most beloved Daedric princes, revered by many mortals as a goddess rather than a demonic force. While most Daedra operate through cunning or brutality, Azura acts through foresight and compassion, though her compassion is not always gentle. Her quest in Skyrim begins with a vision, a prophecy of an event trapped within her black star, a soul gem corrupted by betrayal. Azura does not force mortals to worship her. She invites them to walk a path that intertwines destiny and choice. This quest reveals Azura's worldview. Mortals rise through challenge. Prophecy is not fate. It is a direction, and sacrifice is the price of clarity. Her presence in Skyrim is a rare look at a Daedric prince who sees mortals not as pawns, but as potential. Boethia, rebellion, treachery, and the trial of betrayal. Boethia is the Daedric prince of plots, schemes, and the overthrow of authority. Her shrine, hidden among jagged mountains, reflects her philosophy. Only those who topple the powerful deserve to rise. Her quest is not simply a trial of combat, it is a lesson in political revolution. Boethia demands cunning over loyalty, ambition over tradition, strength proven through betrayal. Her greatest followers are those who reject stagnant empires, corrupt leaders, and inherited power. Through her quest, the Dragonborn sees the darker side of rebellion, the side where the oppressed can become oppressors, and where freedom can become fanaticism. Sheogorath, madness, creativity, and the order. Within chaos, Sheogorath is perhaps the most famous Daedric prince, the mad god of chaos, creativity, unpredictability, and inspiration. His presence is playful, terrifying, and wise in ways that defy reason. In Skyrim, his quest in the Blue Palace transports the Dragonborn into the mind of a man falling into obsession. It explores madness as a spectrum, chaotic and joyful, melancholic and fragile, brilliant and destructive. Sheogorath does not teach through cruelty. He teaches through unpredictability. He hands mortals a mirror and forces them to confront the absurdity of their own beliefs. What mortals call madness is, to Sheogorath, merely the freedom to see the world without the chains of logic. Clavicus Vile, bargains, wishes, and the price of desire. Clavicus Vile represents the seductive side of Daedric power, the granting of wishes, the tempting of mortals, and the manipulation of desire. His quests always involve deals with consequences, promises with loopholes, and lessons about the cost of ambition. In Skyrim, his story overlaps with the tragic loyalty of Barbas, a companion who sees more clearly than his master. Clavicus Vile's philosophy is simple. Mortals are predictable. Offer them what they want most, and they will reveal who they truly are. His quests reveal not just the weakness of desire, but the danger of shortcuts. Vermina, dreams, nightmares, and the fragility of memory. Vermina explores the realm of sleep, dreams, and subconscious fears. Her quest in Skyrim takes you into a temple where reality and hallucination blend. It examines the idea that dreams can be prisons, and that memory can be weaponized. Vermina's influence shows that even the quietest parts of the human mind can become battlegrounds. Meridia, light, life, and the purge of the undead Meridia is a paradox. A Daedric prince who despises necromancy, corruption, and anything that defiles the living. Her quest is one of the most cinematic in Skyrim, lifting the Dragonborn above the world as she commands them to purge the infected halls of Kilcreath. In a universe where so many Daedra traffic in pain, Meridia is a force of sterilizing clarity, violent, righteous, and unwavering. Her artifact, Dawnbreaker, symbolizes her hatred for corruption, a blade that explodes with cleansing fire. Meridia teaches one lesson: life is sacred, and anything that desecrates it must be destroyed. Closing Section 5, the Daedra as mirrors, not monsters. Skyrim's Daedric princes are not villains or heroes. They are reflections of humanity's deepest instincts: ambition, desire, fear, rebellion, decay, creativity, domination, prophecy. Each quest reveals a truth mortals rarely speak aloud: that morality is not fixed but shaped by context, choice, and belief. The Daedra are the imperfect gods of an imperfect world. They test mortals not to punish them, but to reveal what lies beneath their armor, their ambition, and their identity. To understand them is to understand the shadows cast by every candle in Nord halls. And now, with gods explored and philosophies revealed, we turn to the creatures that roam Skyrim. From giants who walk like moving mountains to beasts of legend buried under snow. Skyrim's land is wild, not just in the owl, Poetic sense, not simply because its mountains loom like ancient fortresses, but because life itself in this province clings to survival with ancient tenacity. Every valley, every river, every forest is shaped by creatures that have adapted not only to the climate, but to the long history of magic, conflict, and mythology embedded beneath the snow. To travel across Skyrim is to encounter a world where nature is not passive, but active, where every animal tells a story about the land it inhabits. Let us explore the beings that roam its frozen plains, haunted ruins, deep caverns, and clouded skies. Wolves, the shadows of the forest. Wolves are often the first creatures a traveler meets when stepping beyond city walls. They hunt in small packs, moving with instinctive coordination, a reminder that even the smallest predators in Skyrim have learned to adapt to the harsh north. Their presence symbolizes the province's unforgiving nature. In Skyrim, strength is not about size, it is about unity, patience, and the willingness to fight for survival. Wolves hold a symbolic place in Nord culture, representing vigilance and loyalty. They appear in carvings, banners, and stories passed down in longhouse feasts. To the Nords, wolves are not pests. They are reminders that danger and beauty often share the same shape. Bears, solitary kings of the wild bears, embody raw power. Unlike wolves, they do not rely on packs or stealth. Their authority comes from strength alone. There are several varieties in Skyrim: brown bears that occupy the lowlands, cave bears in the darker forests. Snowy tundra bears adapted to the cold bears symbolize independence and resilience. A lone bear defending its territory is a microcosm of Nord belief. Endurance is a virtue, and survival is an achievement. Saber cats, silent and deadly. Saber cats are apex predators, solitary, fast, and silent. Their instinct is pure efficiency. Strike hard, strike fast, disappear. These creatures embody the ruthlessness of nature. Their fangs curve like ancient blades, relics of prehistoric ancestry. Many Nords see them as symbols of honor in the hunt, difficult to track, dangerous to confront, and respected when defeated. Travelers learn quickly that saber cats do not roar warnings. They leap from grass, ice, or shadows with lethal purpose. In Skyrim, nature does not always give you the courtesy of a second chance. Trolls, beasts of regeneration and fury trolls are more than brutes. Their bodies regenerate with uncanny speed, making them formidable adversaries even for seasoned warriors. They roam caves, abandoned structures, and snowy mountains, moving with a mixture of slow curiosity and sudden violence. Each troll has 3 eyes, a detail that hints at their ancient origins and connection to magic. Scholars debate their place in Skyrim's ecology. Are trolls simple animals altered by magical evolution? Are they remnants of an ancient pre-Nordic world? Or are they something between natural and supernatural? Their regenerative abilities suggest a deep biological mystery, one that even mages struggle to explain. Giants, nomads beneath the sky giants, are among the most iconic creatures of Skyrim. Massive, slow-moving nomads who roam the plains with their herds of mammoths. Contrary to popular belief, giants are not hostile by nature. They are shepherds, caretakers, and wanderers of ancient lineage. Their camps are decorated with painted stones, ritualistic bone totems, and large, handcrafted artifacts. These objects hint at culture, not human, not elven, but something older and quieter. To giants, mammoths are not beasts of burden, they are sacred companions. A bond exists between them that no Nord fully understands. Giants attack only when threatened or provoked. Their strength is immense. Their swings can send warriors flying into the sky, a phenomenon spoken of in taverns both as legend and as humorous exaggeration. But beneath that spectacle lies a deep truth. Giants are not monsters. They are remnants of a lost world, coexisting with Skyrim out of necessity more than conquest. Mammoths, living relics. Mammoths are peaceful, slow-moving herbivores, found grazing in frozen fields alongside their giant guardians. Their tusks are carved with patterns that resemble ancient script, spirals, glyphs, and marks that carry unknown meaning. Some scholars say mammoths are sacred to the giants. Others believe the carvings enhance their connection to the land through magic or ritual. To see a mammoth herd moving across the tundra is to witness living history. Creatures who have existed in Tamriel since the earliest ages. Falmer, the fallen snow elves. Few creatures inspire as much sorrow and horror as the Falmer. Once the Snow Elves, a beautiful and sophisticated race, they became twisted by centuries of enslavement beneath the ground. Blinded by the toxic fungus of the Dwemer, manipulated through generations of cruelty, the Falmer devolved into creatures driven by pain, paranoia, and survival instinct. Their society is brutal, defined by darkness and fear. They build primitive weapons, use chittering chorus as mounts, and worship grotesque versions of their lost ancestors. Falmer are not simply monsters. They are victims. Their existence is a living reminder of how cruelty can reshape entire civilizations. Every time a player enters a Falmer hive, they step into a tragedy thousands of years in the making. Dwemer constructs, guardians of the Lost Forge. Where the Falmer are tragic, the Dwemer constructs are enigmatic. Created by a vanished civilization, these mechanical guardians continue their ancient duties without question. Spheres patrol in rolling silence. Spiders crawl along dusty ruin walls. Centurions stand as immense armored titans powered by steam and magic. Their purpose remains unchanged despite thousands of years having passed. The machines highlight the Dwemer's unparalleled mastery of engineering, a blend of magic and metal no modern society has replicated. Their existence raises many questions. What power source sustains them? Who programmed their orders? How do they remain active when their creators vanished overnight? Their silence holds answers no scholar has yet unlocked. Chorus. The crawling terror of the underground Chorus are among the most feared creatures of Skyrim's underground world. Insectoid, armored, acidic, and territorial, they serve as both livestock and war beasts for the Falmer. Their venom is powerful enough to weaken even hardened warriors. Their larval forms, the Chorus hunters, transform into winged monstrosities capable of swarming foes. Chorus embody the brutality of Skyrim's underground ecosystems, a world where life adapts not through beauty or balance, but through sheer, vicious survival. Dragons, apex creatures of myth and sky. Though dragons were explored in depth in the previous section, they also belong here as part of Skyrim's living world. They are not simply adversaries. They are weather events, territorial forces, philosophers, predators, symbols of ancient memory. Their presence changes the ecosystem. Animals flee, giants grow restless, storms gather, word walls hum with power. Their place in the bestiary is both literal and symbolic. Mud crabs, Skyrim's unexpected icon. Mud crabs are small, territorial crustaceans found near rivers and coastal shallows. Though harmless compared to dragons or trolls, they have become one of the most recognizable creatures in Elder Scrolls history. Their behavior is simple. They hide, they defend, and they retreat. Yet their stubbornness and personality have made them a beloved fixture of the fandom, proof that even the smallest creatures can leave a lasting impression. Foxes, quiet guides of the wilderness. There has long been a myth among Skyrim's players that foxes lead travelers toward treasure. While unintended by design, the belief became so widespread that it turned into a piece of communal folklore. Foxes run not toward treasure, but along terrain safest for their pathfinding. This often coincides with caves, ruins, and hidden locations. Thus, foxes have become subtle guides, living markers hinting at secrets nearby. Hagraven, twisted. Magicians of the Reach Hagravens blur the line between beast and witch. Once human, they sacrifice their humanity in exchange for dark magical power, undergoing a ritual transformation into bird-like monstrosities. They practice forbidden rites, corrupt nature, command forsworn loyalists, bind their souls to bloody contracts. Hagravens represent the cost of forbidden magic, power purchased at the price of identity. Spriggans, spirits of the forest. Spriggans are manifestations of natural magic, guardians of wild spaces, forests, and ancient groves. They are not inherently hostile. They defend nature, and those who harm the wild risk their wrath. Their glowing green bodies, composed of twisted wood and flowing sap, hint at a connection to forces older than elves or men. Spriggans embody the soul of Skyrim's nature, beautiful, mysterious, and deadly when provoked. A living world that breathes and bites, Skyrim's creatures are more than enemies or obstacles. They are expressions of the land's identity. Every wolf pack, every Chorus hive, every giant carrying a mammoth tusk speaks to a world shaped by resilience and ancient history. This is a province where nature is not passive. It challenges, protects, devours, and evolves. To walk its wilderness is to understand a simple truth. In Skyrim, the world itself is alive, and it remembers. Now that we've explored its creatures, we step into the stories hidden within ruins and caves, into quests that reveal the forgotten corners of Skyrim's soul. Skyrim is vast, but its greatest stories aren't always announced with fanfare or dramatic cutscenes. Some of the most memorable moments are hidden in corners of the world most players never fully explore. Places without map markers, quest prompts, or dramatic introductions. These stories exist quietly, discovered by accident or intuition, belonging to characters who don't seek glory and who often suffer without witnesses. To explore these forgotten tales is to see Skyrim as a living place, filled with tragedy, mystery, humor, and human depth. Let us wander into the hidden narratives that shape the soul of Skyrim. The Forsworn Conspiracy, a city built on secrets. In the ancient stone walls of Markarth, a tragedy unfolds beneath the surface, a political drama rooted in injustice and the complex history of the Reach. When you first arrive, a woman is murdered in front of you. Her killer screams of liberation, of freedom, of a rebellion forgotten by the rest of Skyrim. This moment begins the Forsworn Conspiracy, a spiral into the darkest corners of Markarth's political landscape. The Forsworn believe themselves to be the true children of the Reach, betrayed by Nords who seized their ancestral land. Their history is long and bloody, woven with broken treaties, forced annexations, and surviving through guerrilla warfare. As the Dragonborn investigates, guards whisper warnings, nobles hide their guilt, prisoners speak of cruelty, leaders justify brutality in the name of order. The deeper reality emerges. There are no heroes in this story, only survivors. The quest ends in a moral crossroads where justice is not clear. In Markarth, truth is as sharp as the stone it's carved into. Waking Nightmare, the fractured mind of Dawnstar. The small town of Dawnstar suffers from a plague that leaves its people exhausted, panicked, and afraid to sleep. Nightmares haunt them, visions of fire, fear, and whispered voices. The quest Waking Nightmare reveals that these dreams are manipulated by Vermina, Daedric Prince of Dreams and Nightmares, through an ancient artifact known as the Skull of Corruption. This quest explores the fragility of the human mind, the consequences of suppressed trauma, guilt and redemption, and the thin line between dreams and waking life. Two mages, Arander and his former comrades, stand on opposite sides of a moral wound left decades ago. Their conflict becomes a meditation on responsibility and the cost of survival. This hidden story asks a quiet question. How much of suffering is chosen, and how much is inflicted? A Night to Remember, a journey across Skyrim in a single hangover. Not all hidden quests are solemn. Some are deeply humorous. A Night to Remember begins with a simple drinking contest in a local tavern with a stranger named Sam. A few tankards later, the Dragonborn awakens on the opposite side of Skyrim with a hangover, a trail of destruction, a goat that has run away, a stolen wedding ring, and a furious temple priestess. This quest takes the player across the province, retracing their drunken misadventures, each one worse than the last. The twist comes at the end. Sam is not a mortal at all, but Sanguine, the Daedric Prince of debauchery and revelry. This story reminds players that Skyrim is not only about war and tragedy, it's also a world where absurdity and joy coexist with danger. Barbas and Clavicus Vile, a tale of loyalty and manipulation. In the wooded roads around Falkreath wanders a talking dog named Barbas, loyal, eager, and strangely intelligent. His true master is Clavicus Vile, Daedric Prince of Bargains. Barbas seeks help not for himself, but to mend a fractured relationship with Vile. Through this quest, Skyrim subtly explores loyalty given versus loyalty earned, the cost of desire, the arrogance of Daedric power, and the emotional depth of companionship. Barbas is more than a Daedric creation. He is the conscience Vile refuses to acknowledge. At the end of the quest, the player chooses whether to reunite them or not. Both outcomes reveal a deep truth about the nature of desire and the illusions of power. Frostflow Lighthouse, the quietest horror story in Skyrim. On Skyrim's northern coast sits Frostflow Lighthouse, isolated, battered by storms, and easy to overlook. But inside lies one of the most haunting stories in the game. No quest marker sends you here. The tragedy waits in silence. As you explore the lighthouse, you discover a family torn apart by strange, chittering monsters, chorus, that tunneled upward from the depths. Their journals describe a mother trying to protect her children, a father fighting against impossible odds, fear building beneath the floorboards, hope fading with each passing night. This unmarked quest unfolds as a story of bravery, desperation, and heartbreak. It is one of the darkest reminders that Skyrim's world is dangerous not only for adventurers, but for ordinary families trying to survive. Unfathomable depths. Ancient knowledge in Dwemer silence beneath Riften. A troubled woman named from deepest fathoms gives the player a mysterious lexicon tied to the vanished Dwemer. This begins Unfathomable Depths, a journey into the great machine halls of the Dwemer ruins. Within these ruins, the player encounters a strange effect. Insight mixed with whispers of ancient knowledge. The mystery lies not only in the Dwemer language, but in the moral dilemma the quest raises. Is knowledge always worth the cost? Are mortals meant to comprehend Dwemer genius? What happens when mortal minds interface with minds that no longer exist? This quest is a meditation on intellect, ambition, and the allure of forbidden understanding. Blood on the Ice. A murder mystery in Windhelm. Windhelm's stone alleyways hide the story of the Butcher, a mysterious killer targeting young women. Unlike most quests, this investigation requires careful examination of clues. Hidden journals, necromantic altars, secret passages, false suspects. Windhelm's rigid social structure and rampant prejudice complicate the investigation, revealing how easily justice can be distorted by preconceptions. This quest presents Skyrim not as a fantasy realm, but as a city of real human flaws. Cicero Foreshadowing. A strange traveler on the road. Long before the Dark Brotherhood questline unfolds, players may encounter a jester named Cicero, stranded with a broken wagon. His strange laughter, cryptic statements, and mysterious cargo hint at a larger story, one that becomes crucial later on. This early encounter functions as silent world-building, rewarding attentive players while preserving ambiguity for those who simply pass by. It is an excellent example of Skyrim's subtle foreshadowing, stories that begin long before the player realizes. Radiant quests, stories that escape the script. Beyond these hidden tales, Skyrim's Radiant quest system generates countless small stories. Missing relatives, stolen heirlooms, ancient ruins rumored to hold danger, bandits occupying forgotten towers, lovers separated by circumstance. These quests may seem simple, but together they enrich the world with miniature dramas and everyday struggles. They remind us that Skyrim isn't only shaped by heroes and villains, it is shaped by ordinary lives. A province of quiet echoes. Skyrim's deepest stories are not always sung by bards or chronicled in books. Some are whispered in caves, found in torn letters, or pieced together through ruins. These hidden tales give Skyrim its emotional weight. Stories of regret, revenge, hope, humor, love, madness, and sorrow. Together, they form the quiet heartbeat of the game. Proof that even in a land filled with dragons and gods, it is the human stories that resonate the most. Now that we've explored these forgotten corners, we move to the heart of Skyrim's geography itself. The 9 holds, each a world within a world. Skyrim is not a unified province. It is a collection of 9 holds, each ruled by a jarl, each shaped by its landscape, its history, and its people. Traveling between holds is like stepping through different eras of Nord memory. From bustling markets to frozen wastelands, from ancient Dwemer strongholds to fertile plains, the holds are not just political divisions. They are distinct identities carved into the land itself. Let us journey hold by hold, beginning at the center of Skyrim and radiating outward across mountains, swamps, forests, and fjords. Whiterun Hold. Heart of the North, Whiterun is often the first major city travelers encounter, and for good reason. The hold lies in a vast open plain, golden grasses swaying in the wind, herds of wild horses roaming freely, and small farms scattered along the roads like ambitions waiting to grow. Whiterun represents the soul of Nord governance. Open-faced mead halls, hard-working families, merchants who speak with laughter and blunt honesty, traditions preserved across generations. At the city's summit stands Dragon's Reach, a monumental longhouse perched at the edge of a cliff. Its shape resembles the ribcage of a mighty beast, a symbolic reminder that it was once used to capture dragons. Whiterun is neutral in the Civil War, yet its neutrality is fragile. Its central position makes it the beating heart of trade, politics, and conflict. To stand in Whiterun is to feel Skyrim as it was meant to be: open, proud, ancient, and alive. Solitude, the jewel of the north, far to the northwest, lies. Solitude, perched dramatically atop a natural arch carved by millennia of ocean wind and tide. It is a city of refinement, diplomacy, and old-world prestige. Solitude is the capital of Skyrim and the loyal seat of the Empire within the province. Its architecture reflects influence from imperial culture: stone mansions, refined avenues, wide plazas, disciplined military presence. The Blue Palace houses the Jarl, a symbol of Skyrim's allegiance to Cyrodiil. Meanwhile, the Bard's College fills the streets with music, ensuring stories are preserved even when politics shift. But Solitude is not all elegance. Its execution platform reminds visitors of the price of rebellion. Its naval docks are essential for wartime strategy. Its people live in tension between tradition and imperial ideology. Solitude is a city where history is written in salt-worn stone. Windhelm, ancient throne of the first men. On the opposite end of the political spectrum stands Windhelm, one of the oldest continuously inhabited human cities in Tamriel. Founded by Ysgramor himself, Windhelm radiates ancient pride: massive stone walls, harsh, icy winds, markets where voices echo between carved granite, the Palace of the Kings towering like a frozen monument. Windhelm's age is its strength and its burden. The city's identity is steeped in tradition, some honorable, some controversial. The Stormcloak Rebellion finds its heart here. Ulfric Stormcloak's cause draws strength from the city's belief that Skyrim belongs to the Nords alone. But Windhelm's ancient walls also conceal its flaws: racial tension, societal disparity, refugees living in the Grey Quarter, a city struggling to define identity in a changing world. Windhelm is a reminder that history can inspire, but it can also divide. Markarth, stone city of the Reach. Few cities in Tamriel rival the visual uniqueness of Markarth. Built directly into Dwemer ruins, the entire city feels carved from the mountain itself. Water cascades through stone aqueducts. Elevated walkways zigzag above the narrow streets. Every corner holds ancient metalwork and forgotten mechanisms. Markarth's history is complicated. It was originally a Dwemer metropolis, later inhabited by Reach folk for centuries. Finally seized by the Nords, retaken by the Reach during a rebellion, and seized again by the Nords after bloody conflict. This cycle of conquest and reclamation created the Forsworn, a movement born from injustice, revenge, and cultural erasure. Markarth is a city constantly wrestling with its past. Its beauty is unmatched, but beneath every stone lies a story of struggle. Riften, city of shadows and second chances. In Skyrim's southeastern corner lies Riften, surrounded by autumn forests and misty lakes. It is a city shaped by trade, corruption, opportunity, desperation. Riften's wooden buildings lean against each other like secrets trying to stay hidden. Beneath its streets lies the Ratway, home to smugglers, outlaws, and the struggling Thieves Guild. This city is a crossroads of morality: honest fishers working the docks, merchants seeking protection money, orphans trying to survive, nobles fighting for control, thieves operating under the city's foundations. Riften represents a different kind of survival, not through force, but through cunning, negotiation, and resilience. Its autumn colors offer warmth, yet the city is cold in its own way. It is a place where the line between necessity and crime blurs, one desperate decision at a time. Dawnstar, port city of dreams and nightmares. Dawnstar sits on Skyrim's northern coast, where icy winds roll in from the Sea of Ghosts. It is a city of fishermen, miners, and sailors who brave some of the harshest weather in the province. But Dawnstar is more than a port. It is a crossroads of dreams, literally. For generations, the Tower of Dawn stood as a temple dedicated to Vermina. When nightmares plague the city, it reveals the hidden trauma and history tied to the structure. Dawnstar feels isolated, vulnerable, and deeply human. Its people work hard for little reward, but their community is strong. Life here is simple, but never easy. Winterhold, a city lost to the sea. Winterhold's fate is one of the most haunting in Skyrim. Once a thriving city, rivaling even Windhelm, it was nearly destroyed by the Great Collapse, when much of the coastline crumbled into the ocean. Only a few buildings remain. Families were displaced. Generations of grief followed. The College of Winterhold, curiously untouched, became a subject of suspicion. To some, it was a miracle. To others, a sign of magical wrongdoing. Winterhold is a ghost of its past, living between tragedy and survival. Its remaining residents hold on to their homeland with quiet defiance. Falkreath, a city of forests, graves, and quiet rest. Falkreath lies south of Whiterun, surrounded by dense forests and misty valleys. It is a place of introspection, a hold where nature and death intertwine. Falkreath's cemetery is one of the largest in Skyrim, reflecting its history of plague, war, and loss. Yet it is also home to peaceful lakes, skilled hunters, close-knit families, some of Skyrim's most tranquil landscapes. Falkreath is a reminder that beauty and sorrow often share the same space. It is not defined by despair, but by memory. Morthal, a town of mystics and marshlight Morthal, is arguably the most mysterious hold in Skyrim. Nestled within vast marshlands, it feels removed from the rest of the world. Slow, quiet, withdrawn. Fog drifts across the swamps. Houses sit on stilts above murky waters. Locals speak in hushed tones. Morthal's people respect magic, unlike many Nord settlements, and quietly accept the presence of wise women and seers. Its isolation preserves traditions that have nearly vanished elsewhere. But it also leaves the town vulnerable to vampires, lingering spirits, forgotten tragedies. Morthal is a reminder that history isn't always written. Sometimes it drifts in the fog, waiting to be acknowledged. A province of 9 souls. Each hold in Skyrim is a world within a world, with its own economy, culture, climate, and heartbeat. Together, they form a province defined by diversity, conflict, beauty, and endurance. To walk through Skyrim is not simply to travel across a landscape. It is to move through the stories, struggles, and dreams of 9 distinct peoples. Now that we understand the cities and holds that shape Skyrim's political and cultural identity, we must look deeper, into the mysteries buried beneath them. We descend now into the domain of the Dwemer and the Falmer, a story of brilliance, betrayal, extinction, and transformation. Deep beneath Skyrim lies a world that most travelers never see. A labyrinth of metal corridors, steaming vents, mechanical whispers, and silent chambers built by a civilization that vanished in a single heartbeat. To journey into the ruins of the Dwemer is to step outside the boundaries of ordinary time. But the story of the Dwemer cannot be told without the story of the Falmer, their unwilling subjects and ultimate victims. Together, these two civilizations form one of the oldest tragedies in Tamriel's history, a tale of brilliance corrupted by arrogance and beauty shattered by betrayal. Let us descend into the ruins and trace the story of what was lost. The Dwemer, masters of stone, metal, and impossible thought. The Dwemer, often called dwarves by outsiders, were not short, bearded craftsmen as their nickname implies. They were a race of Mer, elven in origin, known for their unparalleled mastery of engineering, mathematics, and magical theory. Where humans saw mountains, the Dwemer saw opportunity. Where others built homes, they built cities of steam-powered machinery carved into the bones of the earth. Their knowledge surpassed every other race. Advanced metallurgy, steam-driven automation, magical physics, tonal architecture, mechanical guardians that still patrol their ruins. Tonal architecture in particular remains a mystery. It blended music, mathematics, and the manipulation of reality. To the Dwemer, sound was a tool, a weapon, a way of shaping the world itself. Their cities, Blackreach, Irkington, Mazulft, Alftund, were not simply settlements. They were laboratories the size of mountains. But genius often carries danger. Eyewitnesses described the Dwemer as brilliant, cynical, and skeptical of gods. They believed in logic above faith, inquiry above obedience. It was this mindset that led to their greatest experiment and their disappearance. The disappearance, a civilization erased in an instant. In the First Era, during the Battle of Red Mountain, the Dwemer attempted an experiment involving the Heart of Lorcan, an artifact of divine origin. Their goal was unprecedented, to transcend mortality and create a new kind of existence. To achieve this, they used their most powerful creation, the Numidium, a colossal mechanical god. But something went catastrophically wrong. The moment Kagranak, their chief tonal architect, struck the heart with his tools, the Dwemer vanished. Entire cities emptied in an instant. Every Dwemer across Nirn disappeared, leaving behind only weapons, constructs, and ruins. Not vanished in battle, not killed by enemies, not driven into hiding. They were simply gone. No bodies, no remains, no survivors except one, the notorious Yagrum Bagern, who was away in another plane of existence at the time of the event. The disappearance remains one of Tamriel's greatest mysteries. Scholars argue endlessly. Did they ascend? Were they erased? Did they merge into a new form of being? Or were they punished for trying to become gods? The truth, like the Dwemer themselves, is lost, but their legacy remains in machines that still walk, in traps that still function, and in ruins that hum with dormant power. The Falmer. The Snow Elves before the fall. To understand the tragedy of the Falmer, we must first see who they were before their downfall. The Snow Elves were once a beautiful, graceful, highly cultured people who inhabited Skyrim long before the arrival of the Nords. Their architecture glowed with magical resonance. Their cities were works of art. Their songs, now forgotten, were said to be haunting and ethereal. They lived in harmony with the land, nurturers of winter's beauty, not victims of it. But everything changed with the arrival of Ysgrimor's people, the Atmorans. Conflicts flared, misunderstandings escalated into violence, and the infamous Night of Tears, when the Snow Elves attacked the Nordic city of Sarthal, ignited a war they ultimately lost. Defeated, desperate, and hunted, many Snow Elves fled underground, seeking refuge. It was here that their fate intertwined with the Dwemer. Subjugation, the Dwemer's hidden sin. The Snow Elves sought sanctuary in Dwemer cities, believing they would be granted protection. But the Dwemer were not a merciful people. They offered safety in exchange for one thing: obedience. They demanded the Snow Elves drink a poisonous fungus that grew deep in the caves, a fungus that blinded them permanently. At first, the Dwemer promised a cure, but the cure never came. Blinded and enslaved, the Snow Elves became trapped in total darkness. Generations passed, each one born blind, each one molded into servants of Dwemer industry. Deprived of the sun, of their culture, of their freedom, they devolved into something new and tragic. The Falmer, pale, twisted creatures filled with fear, pain, and instinctive hatred. This transformation was not magical. It was psychological, environmental, and generational. A slow erosion of everything that made them who they were. The Falmer did not become monsters. They were made into them. Revenge. The Falmer after the Dwemer vanished. When the Dwemer disappeared, the Falmer were left alone in the ruins, blind, evolving in darkness, unsure of what freedom meant anymore. They reproduced, adapted, and rediscovered a kind of primitive society. They built crude camps. They domesticated chorus. They learned to navigate tunnels by sound, smell, and memory. They communicated through clicks and hisses. They became masters of the underground, reclaiming the Dwemer ruins as their own. Their hatred for surface races stems not from malice, but from trauma, centuries of abuse, manipulation, and forced evolution. To the Falmer, every surface dweller is a potential enslaver. Every footstep from above is a threat. Erkengthund. The Dwemer city, frozen in time. One of the most haunting Dwemer ruins in Skyrim is Erkengthund, the location of the Thieves' Guild's climax. Within its depths lies a colossal golden statue. The Snow Elves depicted in their original beauty, preserved in Dwemer craftsmanship. It is the only surviving representation of the Snow Elf race in their pure form. This statue is not a tribute. It is a reminder of the Dwemer's cruelty, a monument to a culture they helped destroy. Erkengthund is the Dwemer legacy in physical form, a blend of genius and cold indifference. Blackreach, a world beneath the world below Skyrim lies Blackreach, one of the most extraordinary locations in the Elder Scrolls series. It is a massive cavern lit by glowing mushrooms, filled with Dwemer towers, Falmer hives, luminous plants, and unexpected mysteries. Blackreach is beautiful, terrifying, ancient, alien. It embodies the Dwemer's obsession with creating worlds within worlds, ecosystems, laboratories, and cities hidden from the sun. Here, the echoes of the past feel alive. The machinery hums as though waiting for a command that will never come. Above its lakes and glowing trees, a dragon named Volthuriel sleeps, awakened only when the Dragonborn summons him with a hidden word wall. This dragon serves as a reminder that even in the deepest earth, the myths of the sky still linger. Blackreach is not simply a location, it is the heart of the Dwemer's ambition and the graveyard of the Falmer's tragedy. The Snow Elf survivors, forgotten royalty. While most Snow Elves became Falmer, some escaped that fate. The Dawnguard DLC reveals two of these survivors, Knight Paladin Gelibor, Verthur, his corrupted brother living in the secluded Forgotten Vale. They represent the last pure remnants of a culture thought extinct. Their existence adds emotional depth to the Falmer tragedy. Not all Snow Elves fell. Not all became monsters, but their people were still lost. Gelibor speaks with quiet sorrow, honoring a culture that is unlikely to ever return. Closing Section 9, a tale written in stone and silence. The intertwined stories of the Dwemer and Falmer are some of the most haunting in Skyrim. One civilization was destroyed by its own ambition. The other was destroyed by another's cruelty. Neither vanished by natural fate. Both were shaped by choices. Choices that echo through every ruin, every hive, every broken chamber of metal and bone beneath the earth. This chapter of Skyrim's history is not about heroes or villains. It is about the weight of knowledge, the cost of survival, and the consequences of forgetting compassion. Skyrim is more than a province. It is a tapestry of memory, woven from myths older than empires, carved into mountains shaped by wars, whispered through forests where ancient spirits still linger, and carried by winds that sweep across tundras indifferent to the passing of ages. We have walked its frozen plains and burning caverns. We have traced the rise and fall of civilizations, the ambitions of gods and mortals, and the quiet tragedies hidden behind forgotten doors. We've followed the paths of warriors, mages, rebels, assassins, kings, and wanderers, each leaving footprints on a land that endures far longer than their stories. The beauty of Skyrim is not only in its size, but in its depth. Every ruin has a history. Every creature tells a story of evolution or extinction. Every hold carries the legacy of its own people. Every choice, no matter how small, becomes part of the world's living memory, and beneath all of it runs the same truth. Skyrim lives. It breathes through the crackling of distant torches and underground tunnels. It speaks in the rustle of pine forests swaying beneath northern skies. It remembers in the ruins of the Dwemer, in the whispers of the Falmer, in the chants of the Greybeards, and in the quiet resilience of its people. Even after hundreds of hours of exploration, the land still feels mysterious, still invites curiosity, still rewards those willing to wander without a destination. Skyrim is not a story you complete. It is a world you return to, a world that welcomes you back with the same snow-covered roads, the same ancient stones, and the same promise of new stories waiting in places you haven't looked yet. And for all its legends, wars, gods, and dragons, the most powerful part of Skyrim is the simple, quiet truth. This world stays with you, even when you leave it. Thank you for walking this long road with me. May your journeys be safe, your adventures be bold, and your next step across Skyrim's frozen soil be filled with wonder, just as if you were seeing it for the very first time.